America picks its next president in 15 weeks, 107 days from now. The incumbent, President Trump, replaced his campaign manager this past week. That's all the proof you need that he knows he is losing, and losing big at the moment. Plenty of time, though, Team Trump says, and that's true. But the president's problems are many. Most voters don't trust him personally or see him as up to the big challenges like the coronavirus and race relations. As a result, we'll show you the numbers. Joe Biden has a big and a growing lead. Let's just take a look at the trend line here. Quinnipiac, you see the stretch? 15 points. The Washington Post also has him at 15 points. The NBC Wall Street Journal poll, 11 points. So a double-digit lead for Joe Biden as we go into the middle of July. Again, 15 weeks to the election. Now, Trump supporters would say he came back last time. He was down last time. He was down last time. But at this point last time, he was down about 4 or 5 points. This is the average CNN poll of polls of all of the polls that were out back at this time 4 years ago. Yes, challenger Trump was down then, candidate Trump, but in single digits. A pretty close race then. It's not a close race at the moment. There's one of the things the president has to change. This is from the NBC Wall Street Journal data. Half of Americans, 50%, say there is no chance they would vote for Donald Trump. 37% say that about Joe Biden. If half of the electorate already says no chance, the president has a problem. He needs to change some minds there. Here's more evidence of his problems. This again from the NBC Wall Street Journal poll. The president leads among white voters by 7 points, but in the 2016 election, he won them by 20. He leads among men by 2 points right now, but in 2016, he won them by 11. Whites without a college degree, part of the Trump base, that looks like a big number, right? The president's up 22 points right now. He won that constituency by 37 points on Election Day back in 2016. He has work to do. Here's another one. If you look at 2016, the Trump campaign was very tough on Hillary Clinton, rise her negatives, because the president had his own problems. Among those voters who disliked both candidates, President Trump won, candidate Trump then, on Election Day 2016 by 17 points among voters who said, I don't really like either one of them. Voters who don't like either one of them right now support Joe Biden by 58 points. That is an enormous advantage. People who don't like politicians, including the president and his challenger, are supporting Joe Biden right now. So if you listen to the president in recent days, not much talk about the coronavirus, a lot of whacks at Joe Biden.
I will tell you, if Biden got in, this economy would be destroyed. Joe Biden's entire career has been a gift to the Chinese Communist Party. When Biden and the radical left want to open borders for MS-13 and others, we want strong borders. The American dream would be sniffed out so quickly and replaced with a socialist disaster.
With us this Sunday to share their reporting and their insights, Dan Balls of the Washington Post, CNN's Nia Malika Henderson. Dan, as someone who's been through some of these, yes, horse race numbers can be changed. But when you look into the bones deep, whether it's your new poll out today, whether it's this NBC Wall Street Journal data, any data, the president's problems are so many. I know 15 weeks is a long time, but can you reverse all those things? Questions about character, questions about ability to handle the coronavirus, distrust. It's a lot to fix.
It is a tremendous amount to fix, John. You're absolutely right. He overcame character issues in 2016, so we would have to assume that that's not the major barrier right now. I think when you look at these polls, the biggest problem he's got is the coronavirus pandemic. The disapproval of him in handling that has spiked upward. And as that has spiked upward, Biden's support has grown and Trump's support has dropped. I think that the way out for Trump is twofold. One, he has to rally his base and find more voters like the voters who supported him in 2016 but didn't turn out. But he mostly has to figure out a way to persuade people he is dealing effectively with the pandemic. If he's not able to do that, then I think he's got a very, very difficult time bringing this race home for him.
And Nia, to Dan's point, yes, the president can rally his base, but if you look at the numbers in the suburbs, which in most of the big battleground states decide close elections, the president's numbers are tanking still. And to Dan's point about the big challenge before us, let's just show the numbers. Do you approve or disapprove of the president's handling of the virus? 6 in 10 Americans disapprove. It's the biggest challenge in the country right now, including a lot of Trump states. If you look at where the numbers are going way up, 60% disapprove. Do you trust what the president says on the virus? Not much or not at all, 64%. Nearly 2/3 of Americans say they don't trust their president when he talks about the biggest challenge facing the country right now.
Yeah, this is a huge problem for this president. You have some advisors saying, well, listen, if he gets back out there in the way that he was out there before with those daily press press conferences, maybe that would change things around. In fact, a lot of the things that he said in those press conferences are why you see the numbers where they are now, with people not trusting this president, essentially thinking that he's checked out on this. It's also his behavior, right? I mean, he has essentially not had a plan. I mean, that is the plan, to leave it up to the states and have a sort of piecemeal approach, and just to kind of will the schools back open without having any real plan. So this is a real problem. I also think there is something here in addition to the coronavirus. I think the Lafayette Square incident as well, where you had authorities clearing peaceful protesters. This was in the beginning of June. People sitting at home watching that on their televisions. I think that also is seared into the minds of these voters in terms of how this president's behavior, what that means for average citizens. And there are things like that that you can't really reverse. And with the coronavirus, it also just doesn't seem like the president has any appetite to focus on this, even though it's clear that it's uppermost in the minds of American voters right now.
It's a great point, Dan. He seems obsessed with little petty side fights. John Lewis died yesterday. The President of the United States, you would think under any circumstances, would come to a camera and say farewell and pay tribute to an American hero. Nia mentions clearing the protesters. He hasn't had a coronavirus event, an event specifically designated to it, in 12 days. But he did take a pose at the White House at the desk in the Oval Office with a bunch of products from Goya, because there's a boycott underway from some people because Goya's CEO said nice things about the President of the United States. So this is what the President thinks is important. But if you look at your polling today, you look at your newspaper today, or you pick up a New York Times today, headline, Inside Trump's Failure, the rush to abandon leadership role in the virus, one of the greatest failures of presidential leadership in generations. I don't get this in the sense that maybe the President doesn't like science. Maybe the President doesn't like all these doctors around him. The President cares about himself and his own political survival and self-interest. He has to know that the way he is conducting business right now is hurting him.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that Bill Stepien, who's the new campaign manager, and the team around, the inner circle around the president, will have to do is force him in some way or another, or try to force him to become more disciplined. He became more disciplined in the final weeks of the 2016 campaign, and Democrats are cognizant of that fact. But so far, particularly because of this pandemic, he seems incapable of doing that, and he wants to talk about anything other than what is most on people's minds, and that is the health and safety of themselves and their families. Nia makes the point about the Lafayette Square. In our survey, the president has a deficit of about 25 points on race relations, and also a significantly smaller, but still a deficit on crime and safety. So in all the ways he seems to be trying to make the argument against Biden, it is not working, and on the big issue, he's indifferent.
And the flip side of that is that Joe Biden has this enormous opportunity right now, but some big decisions ahead. His scaled-back convention, his vice presidential pick. We're going to watch a lot to see how the president responds, but Biden has a piece of this as well.
That's right. And so far, he's been doing pretty good, right? I mean, you see the polls here. He's got some big decisions to make coming up, and we'll see how he fares going forward at this convention, who he picks for his vice president, and how the president goes at that. But this issue about race, and Dan mentioned the polling there, he's strong on that issue, and you see the president, of course, going back to his tactics from 2016, essentially being a bit of a race baiter. We call it the culture war. It really is just being a race baiter. He's thinking that he can elevate his numbers among white voters, but he's obviously turning away white voters as well, particularly suburban white voters.